questions in the question box. Let us know, what are you considering to studying ahead? Which college are you from? What year are you in? Are you in your final year, or have you logged in earlier because you're just like a pre-planner and you want to get a head start? Let us know. It'll be nice for me to know a little bit about who's logging in and what is it that you are planning to study ahead. For people who just joined in the last 2 minutes, welcome everyone. A very good mid-morning to everybody. We have a fantastic session planned for you from the Red Pen. It's about studying abroad and understanding the landscape of a foreign education degree at the master's level. We're going to talk about various countries. We're going to talk a lot about what are your components of an application. We're going to talk a lot about the things that you are possibly thinking in your head and you don't know where to find the right information. You're feeling a bit overwhelmed every time you Google it on the internet, and then there's so many links that show up, you don't know where to start. That's if that's who you are, then you're at the right place, because I've compiled a lot of information, the most updated information for each one of you, and I'm sure you'll have an amazing take back at the end of the session. Hi, so we're already getting questions, and that's fantastic. Welcome, somebody who's studying banking and finance. First year, pre-planner, excellent, I like it. I like the motivation to plan ahead. Hi, industrial psychology, Vanshi, that's a fantastic option. That's fantastic. It'll be amazing for you to understand social sciences and how you can approach social sciences towards a master's degree. Yes, we are going to talk about differences in countries, and we're going to talk about what is different between the US and the UK when it comes to understanding how the curriculum is different and what the experiences are going to be. I have an entire section on talking about countries. Hi, Vivo 2004, that's a cute name. Congratulations on completing your bachelor's degree. You've made it thus far. NMIMS Mumbai, Khushi. Hi, Khushi. Nice to have you here today. Amazing. We have somebody studying biological sciences. We have somebody studying commerce. It's a nice mixed bag out there. I'm really enjoying this. I'm already excited. Oh, amazing. We also have people with WorkX. Yes, Neil, don't worry. If you're confused about country and budgeting, we're going to talk about some of those things later in the slides. I think we are at that zone where we can actually start the presentation. So welcome everyone once again. I hope you've got your preferred drink for the afternoon, and we begin our presentation today. So the Red Pen was established a decade ago, and we are educational experts across the board. So if you're students from the middle school program, so grade 6, 7, 8 onwards, right up until MBA, we cater to all your educational questions. We cater to all your educational needs when it comes to international applications. And we also work with liberal arts colleges in India. And anywhere that you need counseling, where you are confused and you don't know what course to study or which countries to study, or should I even be studying right now? Should I just go ahead and work instead? Those are the kind of questions that we as counselors help you understand. I am an educational psychologist. I'm a trained psychologist. So I do a lot of counseling when I'm working with students. And whether you're looking at studying abroad or not, the idea is to give you the best, most unbiased, most objective recommendations and information that can help you make informed choices for your future ahead. So let's, we start off today's presentation on the most basics of an understanding. And, pretty much everybody sitting here is thinking, well, I know I want a master's, right? But I want to take a minute. I want to explain to you that when we are looking at studying abroad, right, there are various options that you can consider. You can potentially say, if you have work experience or you are already studying computer science and you are very well versed with computer science and you're not really looking at going abroad to, truly build a robust master's degree level of skill sets because you have a good job opportunity in hand. You just want to upskill a little bit, build certain skill sets in your profile, then a diploma or a certification would be a good idea. A master's is an in-depth study of a subject. It is what will make you a subject matter expert. It will take your bachelor's degree knowledge and build on it. Alternatively, a master's will give you a platform to switch. When I'm speaking to students, I'm often telling them that don't look at your bachelor's degree as something that you're going to end up doing as a job role for the rest of your life, right? If you studied BBA, doesn't mean you have to be a manager. right? A bachelor's degree is more about building a style of thinking within you. Who are you truly, and what are the skills you want to develop in yourself is where you're in college trying to understand yourself, right? Get self-aware, build strengths, and also build confidence in who you are and what your profile is like. A master's is where you build job-ready skills. A master's is where you start understanding which industry, which sector, which space do I want to create an impact in as a professional. And therefore, you commit to a master's, which could be different than what you've done your bachelor's in or aligned to, but that's where you get a master's education. Now, a PhD, yes, typically, as we understand in India, is academia focused. If you want to get into teaching at the higher levels, if you want to be specialized in just one key area within your space of interest, then you would commit to 4 to 6 years of education in that space. But I wanted to let everybody know that it doesn't mean that people who have PhDs don't work. They do get corporate jobs. They are head of companies. They are CFOs and CMOs and things like that. So it's not like doing a PhD means that, oh, you're committed to academia for the rest of your life. No, you are committed to academia for 4 to 6 years of your life. And post that, you could continue in academia, or you could get into just research labs and work in that area of interest, or then you could get into the corporate space as well. There are various kinds of masters, and I wanted to take a moment to help you guys understand that. So when you are looking at websites on the internet, you will see that there is a differentiation between sometimes a taught masters and a research masters. Now, a taught masters is typically how you studied at your bachelor's level. There are lectures, there are structured instructional based classroom engagements with the faculty member or the teaching assistant. So you would typically go into a class, you'll have a syllabus, you'll have a curriculum, you'll have to ensure you earn those credits. And then you have probably project submissions or exams at the end of it, and you graduate with a master's degree. Some masters are MRES, or they're just a regular MSc, but they have a research track, which basically means that your instruction-based learning time is limited in those 2 years. An entire focus of your credits are on you submitting a research paper. So on the onset, you're assigned a mentor from your department, and then you'll be working on a research paper, and that's what you'll spend your predominant time for 2 years doing. Yes, a research master's does align beautifully with people who want to continue into PhD, but it doesn't always have to. There are some programs that are so scientific in nature, they only offer a master's from a research track. And you will, at the end of it, get credits for the research that you submit, the thesis that you submit, but that doesn't stop you from getting employed by the corporate sector, right? So you want to make sure that, you understand what will be my classroom engagement level when I'm considering a master's. There are other kinds of masters. When you go to websites of, say, Columbia, Carnegie Mellon, you go to a London Business School website, you'll see that there are professional masters. Now, professional masters are for people who have work experience. Typically masters are from 0 to 2 years work ex is the typical profile of a master's applicant. But then there are professional master's degrees, which are for people who have worked in the field and now want to upskill or learn more advanced theories and techniques in that area. Right. So masters in computer science or professional masters in computer science, the way that the treatment of the program will be a little different. The way they teach you will be a little different. What they teach you will be slightly different. So you want to make sure that if you do not have work ex and you are a fresh graduate, you don't want to commit to a professional master's program, not simply because, oh, you know what, I want to understand half the thing, but also because they'll reject you because you don't have the work ex that they want. Right. It's pretty much a requirement for them. And then it's an MBA. I mean, if I ask you guys to put in the chat box right now, how many of you are sitting here considering that maybe I'll graduate into an MBA, right, immediately? This is what you need to understand. An MBA needs work ex. An MBA is a professional master's. Any good tier 1, tier 2 university anywhere in the world, barring India, potentially asks you for 3 to 4 years of minimum work experience. So that's something that you want to be aware of. And if you have a management undergraduate degree, jumping into a management postgraduate degree without the work ex just wouldn't make sense for you, right? So you want to make sure that you work, you create some impact in your space already, and then you ask yourself, why do you need a master's? Do you really need an MBA right now? Do you need that upskilling? Do you want to now, are you ready to get into the leadership positions? And then you go into an MBA zone. So anybody who's a fresh graduate out here who doesn't have any work ex, an MBA may come into your planning, but not at this stage. At this stage, it's either work or then study a master's or do a certification or a diploma, right? Now, I am going to spend the next few slides talking to you about the components of an international postgraduate application. Now, most of you who've studied in Indian colleges, there are some here who've studied in international colleges, but most of you who studied in Indian colleges, Indian non-liberal arts colleges, your admission to a bachelor's program was very straightforward. Your 12th grade, submit the form on time, get into list 1 or list 2 or list 3, pay the fees, boom, you're in, student ID card in hand. That's not how international education works. Every university outside of India potentially requires you to submit multiple components, right? And what you have to do is you have to understand the reason why is this needed, so that you can actually present to them a document that answers the question that they're seeking answers from you in their application, right? So the resume is very, very critical. Now, resume has to be a one-pager. Typically, if you don't have 10 years of work ex, don't have more than 1 page of a resume. Don't mention things like 12 standard scores, 10 standard score. I did Kathak till grade 8. Those are not things that you want to write in your grad school resume, right? Because it's all past. So the last 3 years in college, the last 4 years in college, if you've graduated and you have work ex, then everything from first year onwards is what your resume will have. And it has to tell them how you've spent your time, what are the skills you've learned, right? And what is the kind of impact you've made already. Right? So it's educational, internships, projects, research papers, research readings. All of those are sections of your resume that you must keep in mind when preparing a resume. I've written here, it's different from a CV. It's because a curriculum vitae from an international or global perspective is submitted for research purposes, right? So a curriculum vitae predominantly has a lot of details about your academic research, your academic readings, what are your publications. It's a research robust profile. And that's what a curriculum vitae is. So curriculum vitae are much longer and they're more detailed about what your publication and research profile is. A resume is a snapshot. It's a 1-page document that the 8 seconds or 10 seconds that an admission team spends on, they'll understand your trajectory over the last 3-4 years. Okay, these are the predominant things that this person has done. These are the skills sets he or she has learned, and this is the kind of impact he or she is hoping to, has already created in the space, in the community, in college, wherever, right? So that's very important for you to understand. Every college will ask for a resume. Every college. Now, is another document that you need to submit, multiple sometimes, 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 1. But this is a very important document. This document is important because it gives the admissions team an insight into who you are from another person's perspective, right? Because the resume is self-created, the essays are self-written. This is a third person's perspective on you. It's really, really important that it is backed by examples, right? Typically, if you go to a professor and he says, yes, I'll write you a recommendation, and they say, this student is fantastic in my class. I'm very happy to have this student. He or she is a really good, strong student and submits everything on deadlines, and I recommend him to your course. What did you tell me different? I could literally change the name of the student and this letter would apply to everybody, right? But if I can give you examples with it, if I can say X student has been the top 1% of the graduating class from last semester, she has been diligent with her deadlines. I remember just pre-COVID when I submitted something and we were then struggling with virtual learning, etc. She still, through that struggle, ensured that she did her final semester submission on time. And I recommend, and I appreciated that. I applauded her for the fact that she didn't get sidelined by all the hustle and bustle that was happening going on online. And she still managed to meet her deadline, right? So very personal examples are important, which is why it's very critical that you take time and think about who your recommenders are going to be. At this point, I'm going to pause and I'm going to encourage you guys to take a screenshot of this slide. Okay, any slide that you think is of value to you, please go ahead and take a screenshot. I'm very happy for you to have this so you can read it later in your free time. So ensure that your recommender is somebody who knows you well. It doesn't matter if they taught you the same subject. For example, if I'm doing a BA in literature from Hindu College in Delhi or Xavier's in Bombay, and I want to apply for creative writing masters, I don't have to go to my English teacher for a recommendation. You know, I did do economics for a bit, so then I can go to the economics department, or I can go to the dean and say, you know, I did so many college activities while I was at Hindu or while I was at Xavier's, because the dean can talk about it, right? A teacher sitting in the class can talk about what you were in the class and in her class or his class. But a dean can talk about your college engagements as well. So pick the right recommender, right? I meet students. I meet students for my counseling sessions all the time. And sometimes students tell me, well, you know what, I'm working for a small startup, so I can get the CEO of the startup to give me a recommendation. Or, you know, my dad knows the managing director of the company that I did an internship in, so he can write me a recommendation. Well, but he or she didn't work with you directly. You know, the CEO, she didn't work with you. The managing director, he didn't work with you. So it's better to go to your direct supervisor who can talk about how good, how weak you were when you came in, or how amazing you've become now, how you've learned through the process, the kind of questions you asked. Those are the personal examples you want from your recommenders. So this becomes very critical, right? I'll sometimes get a student saying, well, you know what, I'm studying in X college, but a professor from IIT is willing to give me a recommendation. Can I just go ahead and take it because I know that person? Or I'm applying to Duke University and he was an ex-adjunct professor at Duke. Can he give it to me? Yes, he can. The IIT or the Duke ex-adjunct professor can give it to you, provided they've worked with you. They're giving you personal examples. To put it plainly, if you're just going to give a recommendation because this person is well connected, right? And you're going to spend half your recommendation letter talking about that person's credentials, then that's not a good reflection on who you are to that person, right? So bear that in mind. Another very key element of your applications are your transcripts. Now, India specifically has a lot of GPA options. We have a 4 scale, 5 scale, 7 scale, 9 scale, 10 scale, right? So you want to make sure that you get your credits evaluated on a 4.0 scale if you're looking at North American universities, right? And a 4.0 scale also works for Singapore, for Australia, for Europe, simply because they understand a 4.0 scale. It just becomes like a uniform standard on which to gauge where you stand, right? And I'll tell you how you can do that conversion as well. You know, there are free conversions online which you can refer to gauge, right? But these are not official, so you can't submit those. But the UK is a very unique system. So I've kind of put it out there for you, right? The UK system is first class, higher second class, lower second class, and then a pass class, okay? So when they say first class, typically they mean 65%. But if you're looking at like the Harvard and the Stanford of the UK system, which is what I've listed here, London School of Economics and London Business School, but if you also look at Imperial somewhere or King's College, you know, the key names in the UK system, then you'll realize that for them, a first class honors actually means 80% from an Indian board. Okay, so you want to bear it in mind that you actually do meet the minimum entry requirement to be able to apply. Right now, besides the US, every other country has a minimum entry requirement. Right now, at the end of this webinar, if you go to the website of your dream college, which is not in the US, and you go to the program of your choice, you'll see that there is a minimum entry requirement. And within that, there is a specification for international students. And then within that, some of them have an Indian specification, right? So you want to make sure that you shortlist colleges where you meet the minimum entry requirement. That's key, right? Now, so when you're looking at, so if you're applying from a college with a 10-point scale, then typically a 6.5 plus is what they're looking at, but LSC, LBS is looking at an 8.2. Okay, that's what they mean by their first class on a 10 scale or on a 4 scale or on a 7. So I've kind of made a chart here for you guys to kind of take a snapshot of and, you know, study it, understand it. If you don't understand it, send me an email. I'm happy to explain it to you. But in the United States, a 4.0 scale works. So then how do you go about converting it? You go to a credit evaluation company. You know, I have World Education Services is one of those key companies. There are many others, but World Education Services is very popular, right? Ishan, I see your hand and I'm going to open the floor for Q&A at the end of the session. So just hold your thought and I'm happy to respond or put it in the Q&A box. So when we're looking at a World Education Services, which is one of the NACES, it's an association for credit evaluators. WES is a company, one of the most popular ones, right? And Indians, they understand the Indian mark sheets, right? So you want to go there and they have a free calculator. So you can put your 7 scale score and they'll tell you what your 4.0 conversion will be, but you have to pay them to get a formal report. And especially if you're looking at applying to North American universities, you want to make sure that you do this process up front and center so that you know whether you are equivalent or not. And then there are certain conditions and stuff in terms of some colleges will take a 3-year undergraduate degree. Some will say we'll only consider it if WES gives you an evaluation. Some will say we don't take West, we will do our own evaluation, and some will say, no, well, you know what, we just need a 4-year and that's it. So you need to do that 1 extra year of a PG diploma or a 1-year MCom or whatever, and then do that, right? So those are the different, so if you have a West report, you can email your shortlisted colleges and ask them, saying that, okay, this is where I currently stand and am I eligible to apply or not, right? So that bit of a homework that you guys need to do upfront and center if you're in the final year. If you're in first year, don't bother right now, but just bear in mind, you've got to do this when you're in the final year. Now, another key component, and this is where, the red pen actually is very, very popular among the student community for, regardless of undergrad, MBA or PG, because we do a lot of essay editing support, right? And when we're good at it. But the point is that you need to understand what kind of essays you're expected to write, right? Now, if people are applying to US, they typically say, okay, I have to do a statement of purpose. And if you're applying to the United Kingdom, you say, okay, well, I have to do a personal statement. And that is exactly what it is. They're typically interchangeable documents which have a different name in a different country. The US calls it an SOP, UK, Europe call it a personal statement. But what they ask you is what I have listed for you in the bullet points, right? There will be some colleges that are more competitive. They will break it up. They will say, well, we want an SOP, and in 250 words, we want your motivational letter separately. So then you're not going to repeat the information. So then you'll not put the motivation in the SOP and you'll take it out and put it in a motivational letter. Stanford, for example, asks for a statement of purpose and they ask for a personal statement. And that personal statement, they call it the diversity statement. So then you have to prepare another separate essay outside of your SOP, which talks about why you are unique for that program. The UK has a personal statement, but they might ask you a why paragraph separately. Why are you considering applying to HEC Paris? Why are you considering applying to Oxford? So you want to make sure that you have a why paragraph, which is separate, that you can actually kind of put in there. It won't be repeated in the personal statement. SOPs, personal statements, typically a good range to look at is 1,000 to 1,250 words. Okay, max go up to 1,500, never more. Nobody's spending more than 20 minutes reading your entire application. So you don't want to just give them, an entire thesis about your life. And actually, the first few words are what they really want to understand about you, right? So you want to make sure that, one, you adhere to what their requirement is. But if there is no requirement, don't go beyond 1,500. I recommend the sweetest spot of 1,000 to 1,250. And my expert advice to you is, you rather give an 850 word essay, which is really on point, which really talks about your story well, and that's it, versus giving them 1,200 words of a lot of fillers, is what I like to call them, right? So about the dreams or the quotations, or, talking about things which are irrelevant to your narrative or irrelevant to your motivation and your goals. You rather have a shorter, crisper essay than a longer, frivolous one. Let me put it like that. Okay. There are video essays, and this has become a new trend post-COVID. Earlier, only business school programs like Masters in Marketing or Masters in Management or Masters in Finance would typically ask for video essays. But now a lot more universities are asking for video essays. So they typically give you a prompt then and there, and then you have to prepare it and you have to shoot a video and submit it. So that is something that, you want to look into. You want to get into your form earlier and ensure whether you have a video essay or not, because you'll have to prep for it. After that, there could be an interview as well. Again, it's a very business school trade, but now even engineering schools are asking for video interviews. So they either hook you up with an alumni and they say, okay, this alumni will do an interview with you, or the admission officer gets in touch with you. And, in the US, it's a lot more about who you are as a person, what makes you unique and things like that. But in the UK and in Europe, it's a little more about, slightly more technical, especially if you're looking at psychology, biological sciences, anything to do with technical or pure sciences. They want to understand how well you know your subject. So they will ask you a little bit about the theories of the subject, a little bit about case studies about a subject. So you have, bear in mind that you'll have to prepare for it, right? According to which country that university is in. The final piece, right, is each one of you will have to fill up multiple forms. There are very few programs like Masters in Public Health, for example, in the US, which have a common form, right? Every other university will pretty much have their own forms, and you will have to fill up multiple forms. So once the forms open in August, September, October, you must ensure you go into your form, create your account, understand what they need from you. Are there additional pieces that are needed? Do they need an academic writing sample? Do they allow me to submit a third optional recommendation letter? Are they asking me to do a video essay component? So let me understand, what is the rules and regulations around that video essay. Do they have any scholarships that they've declared, within the form, saying, okay, by this date, if you submit, then you can vie for this scholarship. So those are some of the things that you want to ensure that you are on top of, right? Which is why it's important to spend time on your form. It's not something that you do one day before the deadline. Okay, that's one. And the second most important thing is don't wait right till the end to be able to do this, simply because there are technical breakdowns, right? If you think, oh, everything is ready, my deadline is December 2nd, December 1st, I'll hit submit. I want to let you know that in this last cycle, Stanford, Harvard, London School of Economics, their portals broke down. The rush to apply that last 24 hours was so intense, the portals broke down, right? And students who are not in that time zone had to wait for almost 12 to 14 hours till they received a response from the admissions team saying that, oh yeah, we realized our portal shut down, so we're going to go ahead and give you an extension of a few days. So you don't want to be in that situation, right? Another thing, bear in mind, most universities will consider midnight of their time zone, but some are damn sneaky. They will write it's midnight at your time zone and the portal shuts down. You cannot submit after that. So you want to make sure that you get into your form and you identify your deadline for yourself, and you give yourself a week prior to the deadline as an internal deadline and work with that in mind instead. There are financial documentation. In the US, sometimes they give you a form that you have to fill out by your main sponsor and upload it. Sometimes there are letters that they ask you to submit, like an affidavit of support or a financial statement from the bank manager, things like that. And then there are application fees. 99.9% US colleges have application fees, also Canadians. UK, some colleges have it, most don't. Europe, some colleges have it, most don't. So it's subjective, right? So again, something that you want to make sure that you have budgeted for yourself. And also once you've shortlisted your colleges, you kind of figure out how much do I have to pay per college using an international credit card, please. Not international debit cards, international credit cards. Very, very key component, right? Go ahead, guys. Please take a snapshot if you like. The one thing about tests that I want to talk about, actually two things. One, if you are currently in a bachelor's program, if you are from an institution that is not in an official English speaking country, okay, which are some of the Caribbean islands, Australia, New Zealand, US, Canada, the UK, you must give an English test, right? Yes, there are waivers. You have to apply separately to each college for an English test waiver. Suppose you have 8 colleges you're applying to and 6 come back and say, well, okay, fine, we accept your waiver. Go ahead and don't do it. 2 might say, no, but we still want it. Then you're going to have to prepare for it anyway. Or you can choose to not apply to those 2 colleges. That's your call. But from a conventional point of view, just go ahead and do it. Admission officers like to see Indian and international students from non-native English-speaking countries to have an English test. It just helps them not red flag that document, that application. The other thing is also that besides the US, which by the way will ask to see in the visa interview your English test scores, most countries need it as a mandatory requirement for your visa, right? The UK, for example, Canada, the IELTS is mandatory, not even the TOEFL, the IELTS. So if you're going to be applying to any of these countries in the hope of considering it later on, then you might as well just get it out of the way. If they're valid for 2 years, you go ahead and do it. You get a good score, you use it for the visa as well, right? The second thing I wanted to talk about was the GRE or the GMAT. Now, COVID saw a lot of waivers and the application numbers were booming, okay, which is why the last 2 COVID years became more competitive for a master's application or a PhD application. What I do want to tell you is that if you are somebody who is not COVID impacted now, who is fully English educated, has the means to give the GRE or the GMAT, so you can afford the internet, you can afford the fees, you have the mental capacity to give it, you have the skill sets to give it, it's not optional for you. It is optional for people who truly are unable to give it, right? In which case there is a waiver form. You go, you apply for a waiver and then they approve a waiver or they disapprove a waiver. But remember, even if you get a waiver, you are applying in an application pool from South Asia where almost every other applicant is giving it. And because we are in June and you have ample time before your deadlines, think about giving the GRE or the GMAT to supplement your profile and to honestly make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. You've checked all the boxes. You're not giving them any chance to red flag your application for wanting more. Okay. Now, those were the components that we discussed, right? I want to now tell you that, a lot of these components are in your sphere of influence. right? Your resume, you're spending time on your application form, ensuring you have a smart recommendation strategy, ensuring you spend enough time on your essays and you identified the questions that they want from the essays. Your talent, whatever the extracurriculars you've done, what has been your leadership quotient, what has been your impact quotient, what's your success quotient, right? Those are things in your control. Your GPA is critical, right? So that's in your control. Whether you give the standardized test or not, that's in your control. How rigorous is your curriculum? That matters as well, right? If you're studying economics at a college which is considered rigorous by that international institution, then that will work in your favor. So those are things that are in your control, right? You've taken hard courses, you've committed to challenging yourself. Those are all the things why an admission officer will want to give you an admit. But then there are things that are beyond your control, right? Sometimes they have demographic requirements. They want a class which has more girls than boys, right? What are you going to do about that, right? That's their diversity quota, and they want to ensure that they have 58% girls and less boys. And then so a girl gets in and a boy doesn't, with pretty much the same profile. That's not something you can control. They might decide that, well, you know what, we've had enough applications from Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, Pune. There are these 3 applicants from Kanpur and Roorkela, and let's give the Roorkela kid an admit over the Bombay student because the diversity quotient, tier 3 Indian city, that's not represented on our campus. Let's get a representation from a tier 3 Indian city. So those are things that you are not in control of. Then there are institutional priorities, right? Johns Hopkins, post the entire COVID trial and everything that they had, may get like a very big endowment from the World Health Organization to boost epidemiology and boost the study of epidemiology, right? So for a student who's coming from an MBBS background for a program in public health, to understand that, well, this person worked on the floor during COVID time, will be a great add-on to this new epidemiology lab that we have. And epidemiology is an elective for the MPH program. Let's choose this student versus the next one who comes from another different background, an biotech background and wants to do MPH, right? So those are institutional priorities and you have no control over that. So there's no point overthinking something that's not in your control, right? Then is the question of financial aid. Now, in the United States, every application is considered for merit scholarships. So my advice to you is be smart with your college list. Don't just apply to your dream college. Yes, everybody wants to go to the top colleges in the world. Who doesn't? But if you have a smart list and you have enough target colleges there, you've said 3 dreams, 5 targets, 2 safety colleges, right? Your profile, the diversity that you bring, the demographical diversity, the institutional priority diversity that you bring might actually push that application into the merit scholarship pool and you get an admit with an $8,000 scholarship. You don't know that right now, right? In the US, every application is considered for merit scholarship. Then there is another category called need-based scholarship, right? Some of us do application, but we really can't afford the $60,000 or the $50,000. And there is a pool of money that they have for international students, for need-based students. So you have to declare, you have to give them paperwork to show that you have a 30% need or a 40% need or a 20% need. Now the admission committee might approve you and then they give it to the financial committee. And the financial committee might say, well, you know what, this person needs 35% and we don't have 35% funds remaining to give this student. This student's profile, she's not that stellar that we give her 35%, we want to save it for that other student. We can only give her 15%. So they're not going to come back and negotiate with you. They're not going to come back and say, well, we have 15%, you want it? What they're going to say is, well, we can't accept her. She needs 35%, we don't have 35% to give her. So you will be rejected. And that's an ethical thing to do because you've just told them you can't pay for it, right? So do not apply for need-based financial aid unless you definitely need need-based financial aid, right? If you need it, of course, apply for need-based, right? I've worked with students in the past who've gotten a Columbia admit or they've gotten a Cornell admit and they've not gotten any scholarship, but they applied saying that, okay, you know what? I'll see later when I get my admit, I'll decide whether I want to take a loan or not. And then they've gotten into a target college with an 80% right, with an 80% of their fees taken care of through a merit scholarship. And they've chosen that option because for them, it's like, even if I take a loan, I'm only paying for 20% of my entire education. I can pay off that loan immediately after I graduate versus say taking a $60,000 loan per year, which I will take longer to pay off. Strategies that you can put in place if you have a good college list, which has dreams, but targets and safety colleges as well, right? This is the US, Canada, UK, the rest of the world, US as well, they have private funding. So once you've shortlisted your college, you want to go to the tuition and scholarship page, you want to open all the private funds that they have, right? The Commonwealth in the UK, for example, or the Tata Scholarship at Cornell. And you want to make sure London Business School now has an Aditya Birla Scholarship, which is definitely going to go to 3 Indian students and then 3 students from other parts of the world. So you want to make sure that you check your eligibility for each scholarship, each endowment or each fellowship, and then make an application for that, right? It could be one for women in STEM. And you're not a woman in STEM, you're a man in STEM, you're not eligible. But one could be for students from the Indian subcontinent who are working in renewable resources. And that is you. So because you're applying for a program in sustainable sciences, but you come from an engineering and renewable background. So that's you. You are applicable. So go ahead and apply. So you'll have to identify, and that takes time, right? Which is why going into the form as soon as it opens is a really good idea for you. All right. Timeline. Okay. Let's work backwards. On my right-hand side, you can see there's March, May 2023. That's when the time period in which you get your admits. Jan to March is submitting application because some deadlines are there, but also the interviews are there, right? November, December is when we target telling our applicants who work with us, saying, get your forms in place, get everything in place, get your essays up to date, and December submit. Ideally, before the Christmas break, everybody should have submitted their applications. It gives you ample time to follow up with your recommenders, ensure they've submitted their bit. You get interviews earlier than the rest of the people because you get your interviews in January, February. Plus, if there is any component that's incomplete, the GMAT score hasn't reached from the GMAT company. Your IELTS score was not so good, but you have at least one score. So you submit that and then you tell them, okay, I'm giving it again. So you put the date of the next test as well. So you have a lot of place then, even if your deadline is Jan 2nd or 15th, but you submitted your application in December, for whatever the incomplete components are, you have time for them to reach out to you. By the way, GRE hasn't sent us your score yet. That portion is still incomplete. And you have time to kind of go back and forth and get those things done. So October is, when your transcripts should have been ready by your college, your recommendations should be ready, your recommenders should have shared their email address with you, and you're ready to put their email in the form and send them a request, which means that you're going to spend pretty much pre-Diwali, September, October, getting your test done, getting your essays in place. And that means that this summer, July, August, is when your college research and your resume should be ready. And resume ready is also a good idea right now, because once your college list is ready, you will attend some webinars of those colleges, right? Some of you might take a trip to those colleges to visit campuses. And then you have your resume to send to the admission officer who did the webinar, who you met, and saying it was a great session. Thank you so much. Here are my details that I wanted to share with you. So that you already have a document that you're presenting them, and which is honestly putting your best foot forward, right? So this is a timeline. Again, I encourage each one of you, go ahead, take a picture. This will definitely help you. In fact, print it out, stick it on your cupboard, make sure that you know what is expected out of you for the next few months. All right, country fact sheet. Somebody asked me a question about, studying computer science in US or UK. From a technical perspective, this is what, you need to understand about it, that, if you're looking at a computer science degree, or if you're looking at any other degree, there will still be standardized test scores required. The length of study will vary. Merit scholarships in the US will be there, UK not so much. Your extension will be 3 years for computer science in the US, UK 2 years. But the bigger difference will be that the US will give you more electives. So your core will be less, and your elective options will allow you to curate a curriculum that could excite you and aligns with your interests. The UK will pretty much give you a set curriculum and very few electives. So that's something that when you compare the curriculum, you'll be able to understand. But from a job perspective, if you are in a center which kind of gives you the right job opportunities, then it doesn't matter whether you do comp sci from UK or USA. But I would definitely encourage you to throw in Netherlands and Ireland into that mix, because Netherlands and Ireland do the teaching of computer science very beautifully. There's Trinity, or whether it's Twente or TU Delft. These are universities that teach computer science very well. So that's something that you want to take into consideration, right? So a quick snapshot of the technical details of the countries. I'm assuming screenshots have been taken as needed. Now, in my counseling sessions over the last 16 years, I have often find the same names coming up for different programs, right? And those are bang on. If you're coming to me and telling me, ma'am, I want to study in London School of Economics, whether it's psychology, whether it's data science, whether it's finance, whether it's management, London School of Economics is a great place to study. Of course, it should make it to your dream list. People come to me and say, really want to study here at Stanford? Of course, it should make it to your list. They teach everything well. But are they the only ones who teach those things well? Of course not. There are so many stellar institutions in the world that we at the Red Pen want to educate you about. That, your profile can be a great fit for Stanford, but it could also be a fit for some of these amazing institutions. And some of them are, in fact, dream colleges. They're not easy to get into because people in that economy and in other economies know how amazing they are. National University Singapore. It's a stellar university, which not many Indians want to apply to because they don't understand the impact that an NUS degree has on the rest of the world. IE Business School in Spain, amazing network, right? And the data science program or the business analytics program is stellar. You want to look at Goldsmiths if you're looking at communication, if you're looking at marketing, if you're looking at management. It's in the center of London, and it's an amazing University of London institution to have on your resume. So I wanted to put some names that typical Indian applicants do not consider initially when they first come to us. And then we encourage them to research it. And then after they've researched it, they come back and say, oh my God, I love this curriculum. We have actually worked with students who've given up admits to stellar institutions and gone to lesser known institutions because after they've done their research, they've realized how perfect the curriculum fit is for their study, right? Yesterday, I had a student who got in touch with me. He got into Carnegie Mellon for computer science, and he got into a couple of other places with scholarships for computer science, and he's going to University of Colorado Boulder. Now, many of you out there have never heard of UC Boulder, but UC Boulder is a fantastic place to study computer science, but also mechanical engineering. So these are some of the things that, we as counselors try and educate and inform applicants about, that, your list cannot only be dream colleges, and you have to look at other colleges which are dream or target, but your list needs to be robust and well balanced. So this was something that I wanted to share with everybody. Costs. Somebody did ask me about costs as well earlier on. This is typically the landscape of the costing per country wise. Of course, it will change a little bit, but every year they add a little bit of an inflation to the fees. But this is the ballpark of what you can look at paying or saving for your upcoming education. This is now when I open the floor to question and answers. We are running other webinar series. If you've gone to the registration page, you've seen that I'm doing other webinars. Please log in to whichever other webinars you'd like to attend. I'll be sharing a lot of information. I think the next one I'm talking in depth about your resume, and I'm literally giving examples and templates out and asking people, encouraging them to make better resumes out there. If you do want to speak to the team on understanding how the Red Pen can support you, please go ahead and scan this QR code to book a free consultation. You can also just log into our website and book a free consultation there. I'm going into the Q&A section now. I did answer the one about UK and US for computer science. Jindal School of Banking and Finance, first year right now. All right, that's done. Statistics, Rishabh. Hi, Rishabh. How are you doing? Yes, so Rishabh wants to do statistics in the UK, and this has been a conversation that is really exciting because when you look at studying statistics in the United Kingdom, you are ruling out, Rishabh, certain options that could be teaching statistics brilliantly otherwise as well, like Europe, for example. University of Amsterdam does statistics beautifully. Some universities in the US do statistics beautifully. So it's worth considering, and then of course you can always eliminate, and that's fine, right? All right, I'm looking for questions. Yes, deferred MBA is a great question to have. So deferred MBA basically is for seniors. So if you're in your final year of education right now, you could typically apply to 7 programs. There are 7 programs in the world that offer a deferred MBA, good ones. And what you would potentially do is you would apply for an MBA degree upfront, and ideally, you would already have a job offer for once you graduate. So they will gauge your candidature for an MBA degree in the future based on what you're submitting today as a senior in college. And then you would get an admit, and you have to work for 2 years, and then you start the deferred MBA program with them. These programs are super competitive. Like I said, there's 7 good ones in the world. But also these programs are really, really looking for niche candidates who are already very, very impactful in their college community and in the community outside of college. So if that is you, and you're doing well data-wise as well, GPA-wise, and the GMAT score will come well, then this is a conversation you must have with Team MBA and consider your profile for a deferred MBA. But deferred MBA is just general management. It's not for everybody. So you have to understand your goals first and see whether an MBA is an ideal fit for you 4 years down the line. Okay, so the question from Aditi about LORs. She says, what happens in the case of a professor who knows you well, but is likely to leave the university? Okay, so if a professor is moving or has moved, but the professor still has an official email address, Aditi, then you can definitely request them to give you a recommendation. Ideally, the recommendation should be on an official letterhead with an official email ID. But if the official letterhead of a different college may not be ethical, right? But at least the official email ID to receive it, it adds credibility to the recommender, and that's fine. If the recommender is looking at Gmail, Yahoo and all, I wouldn't advise taking a recommendation from them. It just red flags your application. Yes, you can connect with us. The recording of this presentation is going to be available on YouTube. You can go on our website, the www.theredpen.in, and you can go to our YouTube channel and you can see the presentation here. Immediately after the session, it'll be, it's live on YouTube right now, actually. So it'll be there. For Joshua, for IO, which is in Industrial and Organizational Psychology, you would need the GRE. It's a really good idea to prepare the GRE because IPOB program, the IO programs are offered by the Schools of Social Sciences or Graduate Schools of Arts and Sciences. They're not offered by the business school, so GMAT will not come into play. You should look, Joshua, you should look at doing the GRE. Okay, so somebody asked me if the university look at cumulative CGPA or the GPA. When you get your transcript, okay, now transcript is a global format, right? Like I've written in that slide. It's not your typical mark sheet. What they will do is they will break it down semester wise in the transcript, and then they will give a cumulative CGPA. Okay. So what the admission officers are looking at is one, yes, your CGPA on the whole, okay, whether you are strong enough for that class that they are trying to curate, but in your semester wise CGPA, semester wise GPA, they're looking for progression. They're looking to see whether every semester you have challenged yourself and you have done better than the last semester or not. If you're somebody, now, like for example, currently I am talking to students every day about how offline learning has been hard for them. Suddenly one semester of offline exams and everybody's struggling with their GPA. So if there's been a dip on that one semester, that's understandable. But then that means next semester you got to pick it up again, right? If that doesn't happen, then they're going to question themselves saying, why did this happen? And this person has progressively deteriorated thereafter. So you want to make sure that each semester is progressive, but then they are looking at the total CGPA and then they're trying to look at the progressive graph across the semesters. Kusum, I don't know right now whether we're sending the recording or not, but it's definitely on our YouTube, but I will check with my team. And if we're going to send it, then yeah, you'll definitely get it. When we look at a GRE score at a place like Oxford for when you're looking at programs in politics and economics and philosophy, you have to consider a global range, right? You have to look at competitively what is the global range, right? And Oxford is an institute which will inherently tell you what the minimum requirement is out of a standardized test. But I want to tell the questionee that PPE is an undergraduate concept. It's not offered from the graduate school at Oxford. It's offered from the undergraduate school. Okay, somebody wants to see the previous slide. Yes, absolutely. I can go ahead and show you the previous slide. Let me just, there you go. All right, so you want to take a snapshot, go ahead and take a snapshot. I'll move the Q&A bank here. I'm going to go back into the questions. Oh, happy Pride Month, everyone. I wanted to start with that and I forgot. Happy Pride Month. Okay, going back to the questions. Okay, Aditi is also asking, would New Zealand details match Australia? If there are differences, what do those be? Aditi, yes. Typically, New Zealand educational system is very built off the Australian system. New Zealand does animation probably best in the world. New Zealand does psychology really well, but academia, research focused, right? They do it very in depth. New Zealand does other programs well as well, but these are the two key programs that New Zealand does beautifully. There are very few universities in New Zealand that are really worth considering, but the minimum entry requirements are all there and you can potentially apply to New Zealand. And I think that would be a great idea for some of the subjects that they do beautifully. Ranveer, you added a name to your Vivo. That's nice. So when you're thinking, Ranveer, about studying commerce ahead, right? You don't want to go back into a general management program because you already have a management degree, right? So now it's time to look back at your semesters, at your transcript and see, okay, what is the area that I'm truly shining at? Is it marketing? Is it operations? Am I looking at supply chain? Am I somebody who's truly considering moving ahead and studying maybe human resources or finance, right? And then consider a master's in a specialized zone, right? Do not, honestly, it would be a waste of an education for you with a Bachelor of Commerce to then redo a master's in management. It just wouldn't make sense. You'll be very underwhelmed. What is the right time to start the application process with a red pen? So we have two options for you. One is that you can join our mentorship services right away. So we can actually spend the whole year helping you understand your profile and build your profile. Or the other thing is that you can just do one session for now, okay? And then next year, when you're in your application cycle, come back to us for a package services. Please get onto our website. All the details are there. Alternatively, you can email me and I can send you those details. Manasvi says, when you talk about the LLM, yes. So Manasvi, LLM is a fantastic program to study, whether in the US or the UK. There are two things I would like to bring to your attention about an LLM. One, know your specialization, right? And it's very important that you go in with a very strong narrative about why you want to study international law or environmental or whatever, arbitration, whatever it is that you want to study at the LLM level. Now, how do you get to that level of clarity? Work. Right? The stronger the LLM program in the US or the UK, whether it's Oxford Law, Cambridge Law, you're looking at Columbia, you're looking at U Chicago, Berkeley Law, Yale Law, NYU Law, you are looking at a pool that is applying with a lot of WorkX for their masters in law. So if you spend time on the ground, Manasvi, even if you don't end up knowing, okay, this is definitely what I want to study, you'll definitely know what you don't want to study as a specialization, right? You can do a general LLM as well. But I would recommend, Manasvi, that, spend some time in understanding whether you already know which area you want to specialize in, and that will really add value to your resume if you've taken an LLM in a specialized field, because then that will push up your professional trajectory much higher. PhD admission in the US, especially for English literature, Payal, definitely happy to. It might be still a closed door webinar, but happy to. But when we look at, Payal, when we look at the components, okay, and I do remember, Payal, I think you're somebody who attended my webinar last year as well. The components don't differ. You still have to do a resume, but you have to also do a CV at the same time. Your letter of recommendation will probably be 3 in number, may not be academic, all professionals. You will still do essays, but there is a pre-process that I think we've discussed in the past, where you have to reach out to your professors and get an approval from them that yes, you are somebody they will consider if you apply. So, but the components are pretty much the same, the video interviews and video essays and all of that is, and the timelines are the same as well, Payal. So it's a good time for you to start now, actually. To secure, Kirandeep is asking if it's a potential supervisor in Canada for masters. It is very difficult because many professors say they don't have funding. So Kirandeep, I'm not understanding, are you talking about from a PhD perspective? Or are you talking from a master's perspective? Because from a PhD perspective, yes, stipends are hard, but stipends are not demarcated for international versus Indian, from a international versus domestic from a PhD point of view, right? Each department given certain funding for research and each professor has capacity. So say I'm a professor and I've taken 5 PhD students, and next year I don't have any students graduating with a PhD degree. So all my 5 people will stay on with me for another year. I don't have capacity for you, right? If you're talking about from a master's perspective, teaching assistantship roles and graduate assistantship roles, those happen once you're already on campus. Upfront, Canada doesn't really offer a lot of scholarships for international students. You're right about that. The cost shown are total cost of attending the course over the duration of the program. The tuition fees here, Abhijit, are typically a year that you will spend, right? Now in UK, the program is for 1 year. Canada, it could be 1.5 years. US is 1.5 to 2 years. A lot of the business school programs in the UK, like business analytics and some finance programs, are now going into 1 year zones because ROI, return on investment, is faster. But potentially these are 1 year costing that you're looking at, and the living costs also for a year. Neil, for mechanical in the UK, there is a very small list. Consider Imperial, consider University College London, but Edinburgh and Glasgow have phenomenal engineering departments. These are the top 4 names that come to my mind. Happy to explore more with you, should you reach out to me. Okay, now psychology, right? When you're looking at a 3-year degree in psychology, which country would be the best to study the master degree and stay back? My options would be US, Canada, and Australia. US needs 4 years of education because it's psychology. Is your name out here? Let me check. No, you're anonymous. So Mr. X or Miss X, if you're doing psychology, finish your MA in India and then apply for a master's. Okay. If you are from, say, a Kriya University or you're from one of the liberal arts universities, you may want to do a WES evaluation to gauge eligibility and equivalency. But chances are in the US, you're not going to get equivalency unless you finish, because the way they teach psychology for those 4 years of undergrad is far more rigorous in terms of the research and statistical skill sets, which we do not have in India very often. So you want to make sure that you do the equivalency reporting. And then if you don't get the equivalency for the US, do your master's for 2 years in India and then go, because it will make your profile equivalent enough and robust enough. If you're looking at Canada, same thing. They want to see those 4 years. They are not willing to budge on that. So that's that. Australia, if you're looking at clinical or developmental or neuro, right, which are scientific fields of study, you want to do a 1-year honors program after your 3 years, which is approved by APAC, which is Australian Psychological Association. So that is only available in Australia. So what I would recommend is you first apply for that 4th year bachelor's honors, which all the good universities in Australia have. So you'll do that 1-year study and then you go in. If you're going in for mental health counseling and addiction therapy and things like that, you can apply with the 3 years to the UK, to Australia, and you don't have to do that 4th year. But if you're looking at scientific, the developmental, clinical, neuro fields, then you need to do that 4th year. Vanshi is saying which countries are good for industrial psychology. Vanshi, you have to look at industrial psychology from the perspective of which school am I applying to, right? So industrial psychology is offered by the School of Social Sciences. So you have to go to good programs for social sciences. UK does industrial organizational well. In fact, the University College London has an amazing program called business psychology, which actually might interest you. Australia does psychology well. The US does psychology well. So for industrial psychology, these are the 3 countries I would definitely start off my research on. Is an IELTS score of 21, November 21, valid for fall 23 admissions? November 21 to 22 to November 23. Yes, completely valid. Suchitra, go for it. If somebody wants to pursue international relations, should I take the GMAT? No, international relations, GRE. Can you please explain 2+2 post-study work visa for Australia? Yes, Ayush. So in Australia, based on the fact that you're a student there for minimum 2 years for master's degree. So don't take the 1.5-year option in Australia or New Zealand. Do the 2-year master's, and then you will get a 2-year extension on your visa, right? Now, the idea is that within those 2 years, you will apply for a permanent residency. It's a point-based system based on what you've studied, where you've studied, in your IELTS score and all of that. Typically, a student would get the equivalency in those 2 years for a permanent residency. In case it doesn't happen, you can request for an extension of further 2 years. So that's the 2+2 system for Australia. I'm not a visa expert, though I am an educational expert, but just from the experiences I've had, this is what I can share with you. Somebody wants to pursue related to global communication from journalism lineup. Please suggest some universities. Baruch College, New York. Columbia has a fantastic program, global communications. UK is a fantastic option for you to consider, especially Goldsmiths. You can also look at the integrated marketing communications program at Northwestern and NYU. Those, Ananya, might actually be a great fit for you. Here is looking for actuarial sciences. Can you suggest some universities in the UK and US? Yes, here. So now actuarial sciences is very niche, right? And typically students going into actuaries actually also end up studying something like risk and finance or financial risk management. So, if you look at some of those programs here, the list is too long, honestly. If you reach out to me later, happy to share a list with you or some names with you. Strategic marketing masters, is Europe a good option? Yes, Khushi, Europe is definitely, especially good business schools in Europe. So if you're looking at HEC Paris, if you're looking at INSEAD, if you're looking at ESCP, if you're looking at ESSEC, their program is also a little bit of quant, which is great because it makes your profile a little more future ready. It secures your future a little bit with analytics. But Europe, in some of the good business schools, they do marketing beautifully. UK does marketing amazingly well. UK teaches marketing really well. Elizabeth is asking for European colleges for the economics program. Do you think Finland has a good economics program? I do think Finland has a good economics programs. Elizabeth, if you look at the Stockholm school, for example, if you look at Frankfurt, which is, I know, not in Finland, but there are going to be key business schools because, Elizabeth, not all the good business schools will teach the entire program in English. So if you're looking at a Finnish program, then your options will open up. But if you're only looking at English programs, there will be few business schools that you can start off your research on. And Copenhagen also has a fantastic program, by the way. You should take a look at that as well. University of Amsterdam in Netherlands, Elizabeth, is another very strong economics program. Take a look at that. Pallavi says, MS in HCI UX design, I'm open to studying. Pallavi, let's get started. Let's start with your college research and get you started and get your essays done, because you have pretty much figured out what you want to study. It's a good time to start on your college research. Too long a list to name here, but happy to reach out. If you reach out to me later, happy to respond. Khushi, do USA universities look at the cumulative? I did answer that for you, Khushi. Sunny, if my graduation is not from a well-known college in India, how can I improve my profile? That's when, Sunny, you can actually sign up for a counseling session with us, because there is a lot to discuss. And it's just not like a checklist where I'm like, okay, do this, boom, you're done. Honestly, it doesn't matter if you're not from a good college. It really depends on how strong your profile is. Sai, I know you've raised your hand. Unfortunately, I'm not being able to get to that part of the session. We are already beyond our time. I'm happy to continue answering some questions, but if you can just put your questions in the chat box, I'd appreciate it. How can one try to upgrade their profile in the 4th year? Same thing that I just told Sunny is that, come meet us. Let's talk about your profile and let's brainstorm some ideas on how to build a better profile, even though there are 6 months remaining. Is industrial organizations considered STEM? No. Typically, IO programs are not STEM designated. Some may be, but no, typically IO programs are not STEM designated. But listen, STEM designation is only applicable in the US. In the UK, you're getting a blanket 2 years. In Canada, you study a 2-year master, you get a 2 years. Australia, you study a 2-year master, you get a 2 years. Singapore, you get a 1 year. So, the STEM is only a US concept. So maybe you just want to consider other countries as well. PTE, Ranveer. So the Pearson test is what Ranveer is asking. Should you give the IELTS or the Pearson test? Pearson is not very easily recognized by all universities. You're safer giving the IELTS, academic version, computer-based. Yes, somebody wants to ask how to convert a 10-pointer to a 4-point. Just go to the World Education Services website. They have a free calculator there. Put in your scores and they'll tell you what your conversion is to a 4-pointer. But this is an unofficial conversion. You will have to submit official transcripts and probably a West evaluation report. Would an 8.5 plus CGPA make for a good application for MBA programs? Vedanti, reach out to me. Let me introduce you to the MBA team and they will definitely answer your question for you. I don't want to answer on behalf of the MBA team. We have yearly exam pattern. For the last 2 years, we have not had exams, but been promoted. How do I prepare the transcripts? That's a conversation with your college. You need to understand what your seniors did last year. And you need to also sit down with your college administration and understand how are they going to present your transcripts. But it's important that they have to give it. The college can't say, hum nahi de rahe. They have to do it. So when you said we need WorkX for any professional masters, does it make getting into a master's program difficult? Yes, if the title of the masters you're applying for is a professional masters, you will realize that there is a minimum requirement of WorkX there. Those are not the masters that apply to you if you're a fresh graduate. You have to look at regular masters, whether they are taught or research-based. Don't look at professional master's degree. Okay, of the good universities. Okay, somebody wants to see a slide of the good universities. So here it is. Manasvi, if you work for a year and then in that year you make your applications, then you have minimum 2 years working before you start the program, is a good start. If you end up working for 3 years, that's also fine. So let's just say 2 years. Let's keep that as a benchmark between you and I, right? And say, okay, can we target that? Abhijit says, are the fees shown for total duration of the course? For a year, Abhijit, is what I mentioned earlier. Yes. Somebody said that, when I Google college lists, I get too many colleges. I don't know where to start my research. You start your research by first identifying which course you want to do. And then you have to go into each program and then look at, what are they offering and whether the curriculum aligns with your interests or not. I mean, honestly, you can hire a counselor to do it, whether it's the Red Pin or somebody else, but counselors potentially understand your profile and they suggest a long list to you, which matches your profile. And that's where you start your research, but you can do it on your own as well. I mean, I'm just not a big believer in ranking tables because ranking tables are biased and they have their own demarcations for the ranking, right? Like a QS and a US News, they have different bifurcations on what they are assessing, right? So I am not in favor of ranking tables, but you have to do a lot of research. I'll be honest with you. That there's no other way around it. Okay, somebody wants to pursue physics in Germany. What are the other countries that you can consider? Netherlands, hands down. Zurich, ETH Zurich, if you're a strong profile. ETH Zurich is the Harvard of the world for physics. You must consider that. Khushi, what are the best country to study marketing? UK. Some business schools in Europe and some business schools in the US. Vedanti, preferred countries to study in to build a career in investment banking. No, not countries, Vedanti. You're asking the wrong question. You need to be asking programs, that the curriculum of which aligns with giving me the best shot of becoming an investment banker. Longer conversation, Vedanti. Do reach out. Which place is good for studying biomechanical engineering, Europe or US? Both. Okay, you cannot. Biomechanical in Europe is very research focused, so they research it really well. They do a really good job with their research. Application wise, the US. Honestly, there's no winner here. Both apply to combination of universities. Hi Ishani, welcome to the conversation. Final year of your masters. Environmental sciences, Devjyoti, in Europe, there are some amazing programs in Finland and Sweden and all of that you should definitely look at. But also Columbia has some amazing programs, and certain other universities in the US have some amazing programs in environmental. KTH actually is leading in terms of research in renewable resources and environmental sciences. So we're going to look at KTH, Sweden. It is not right. Manya asks if she can pursue MBA after BCom. No, you cannot. You need work experience. Internationally, in India you can. Abroad you can't. Sai Balaji is asking if MPP is a professional or a taught master's, is work ex required. So masters in public policy is a taught master's, Sai. And Sai, nice to see you on the webinar, by the way. It's a taught master's, and it does not typically require work experience, but you will realize when you go on the website of the leading program like Berkeley or NYU, or even York and LSE, Oxford, that typically applicants applying do have work ex, right? Like Princeton, for example, has a minimum 7-year requirement for their program, and their program is fully funded. But that's a professional master's, that doesn't apply. So you're looking at a taught master's, you will not need work ex, but you will realize that the pool is so competitive in the competitive colleges that you may actually be better off getting a year or two of work ex. Joshua, you're back with the question. You understand IELTS helps you avoid being red flag, but I've met with a lot of university reps and they told me 85% in ISC is sufficient. I'm also studying. Should I still write the exam? Also, do we need to write the GRE for all postgrad psychology courses? Joshua, two things. If every university you're applying to confirms to you that they do not need it, don't give it. Give it later when it's time for the visa. Okay? But even if one university has told you, yes, we need it, then that's your call. Do you want to just give it later for the visa, or do you want to upend it? Give it first, get it done with. That's your call. Subjective. GRE for psychology, yes. In fact, if you're looking at a scientific neuropsych program like developmental and stuff, and you have the time, I would also recommend the subject GRE. I know a lot of masters don't need it, but it is therefore you putting your best foot forward and getting an edge in the application process. GRE to dena. It's a good thing, Joshua, to give the GRE. And I know you're looking at IO programs, but GRE would be a really good idea. All right, Devjyoti, I think I answered that PhD element. Okay, final year of masters with gender studies, want to pursue further, but confused between second masters and PhD. Longer conversation, honestly, than what I can have right now, but it depends on what you want to pursue your studies in, right? If you come back and tell me, well, I want to work in the policy sector of gender, right? And I want to understand how we can implement better gender policies across the corporate space or across the SME sector in India, then you want another master's in policy, right? But if you want to continue studying gender further, then PhD. That's like the simplistic answer, but happy to discuss further. How can you justify academic gaps in a winning way in your interview or SOPs? Nimisha, it depends on what those gaps are and what are your reasons. Some universities, actually most universities will allow you to explain educational gaps in the form, and it's a great way to give them context, backlogs and things. But it really depends on how authentic you are and how you have been able to explain that gap, that they will then take it forward and say, yeah, well, this makes sense, and then move on with it, versus, well, it just seemed that this person did not challenge themselves. Masters in biomechanical engineering, Europe, US is a great idea. Payal, you should talk to professors now, before they go on a summer break, because then they will probably respond to you by August, because then August the form's open. September, you want to start writing your application. Okay, Shivang says he's in his final year and he wants to know when to start preparing documents. Yeah, that's fine, Shivang. So what really happens is in the US, they look at all the semesters that you have, right? And then they give you an unconditional offer saying, okay, typically you're a strong profile and we're giving you an admit. In the UK, in Europe, in Australia, and Canada, they'll give you a conditional offer. And they will then say that, okay, based on everything that you've told us, this is what I think, you can look at getting. So if you get an 85% overall, then you are confirmed. Otherwise, you're not. So you will get a conditional offer. But you should start preparing your application right now. You should start with your college research. June is a good time. 6 months is what you should look at. When you're looking at GMAT prep, whether for an MBA, for a master's, there are many resources out there. And now, thanks to COVID, virtual learning has become the in thing. So find a professor or find a tutor actually who aligns with your learning style. If you're going to give yourself 3 months of study or 2 months of study, understand how this tutor can help you put your best foot forward. There are also online resources available, like the GMAT website, for example, GMAC is the name of the company. They offer some practice tests and resources online. So go ahead and take that. We don't do test prep, so I'm not going to comment on that. No, Manya, it's not a good idea to do MBA after BCom because you need work experience, at least minimum to 3 to 4 years to apply to good MBA programs. Aditi, for masters in conservation, biology, and ecology, the area of New Mexico in the United States, those are some of the places where you have really good programs for marine biology. But also, if you look at Europe, then you would find that the programs are fantastic, and you would really appreciate those programs. And also, Australia has some good programs as well. Tavishi, the list for aerospace engineering in the US is long. You will have to get in touch with us if you want us to do the research for you. It's too long to say right now. What are some of the universities that you would recommend for finance, marketing, entrepreneurship, other than the Ivy Leagues? If I can just draw your attention here, right? And if I'm looking at a general business school, good business school, because you're talking about finance, marketing, the good business programs, Syracuse has a strong business school. Fordham has a strong business school. Northeastern, not only do they offer good programs, they also have an option called co-op, which means working is a part of your curriculum. They give you a semester off and you work, and that's a part of your curriculum. So you actually have WorkX in your resume when you're applying for full-time jobs. That's a fantastic idea, isn't it? NUS has a strong business school. Ryerson does finance and stuff beautifully. Singapore Management University is a good one for that. The IE Business School is fantastic. Melbourne has a Melbourne Business School is probably one of the top in the world. So, University of Southern California, Marshall School of Business, fantastic place to study business program. And their marketing program is stellar. Their finance program is exceptional. Their entrepreneurship program is exceptional. And they have a very, very elite program called social entrepreneurship, which also London School of Economics have, but they have. But it's a stellar program for people looking at social impact in the future. So here are some of the business schools you want to look at. Canadian University is good for LLM. There are very few good, according to me, good Canadian universities one should be looking at. McGill, Waterloo, look at some of their law programs. But the others are then all just target levels, right? Toronto has a good program. McGill might have it. Waterloo, if they have a law department, will be good. Because overall, these universities are really, really strong. IELTS score of September 21, will it be valid? Yeah, because see, you're applying right now with your IELTS score. So if you give an IELTS in 2021 and it's expiring in 2023, you're already on campus by then, you finish the visa process as well. So that's fine. You're fine. You're good to go. Somebody is asking if they'll be at a disadvantage without a paper published in international journals. Okay, I'm going to take possibly the last 2 questions and then I'm going to call it quits because I am now exhausted from talking. But happy to answer your question. If you want to reach out, you can actually schedule a quick meeting with one of my team members here and we would be very happy to respond. You also have our email ID there. Send us an email and I do personally respond to most of the emails. So go ahead and please do that. Okay, will you be at a disadvantage without a paper published in international journals? First year computer science student? No, of course not. What kind of research did you see how successful? Well, you know what? Honestly, comp sci major enthusiast. We see students getting amazing computer science admits every year. Okay, like almost 10% of the application pool I work with every year is comp sci, right? Some of them have research, yes. Some of them has published research, okay. But not everybody has research. But everybody has something unique in the narrative. That uniqueness is what we do during the profile sessions. We help them understand what's unique about their profile and build on that. right? So it's not important for you to have an established journal publication if that's not your thing, but then what is your thing is something that we can help you identify. For international relations, Sunny, look at CFO, look at Hertie School of Governance in Berlin, but also look at Tufts, the Fletcher School, right? It's phenomenal. But you can also maybe look at TAMU, Texas A&M University, which has the Bush School of Governance, which is also a phenomenal target school to have on your list. Parth, if I spend time talking about masters in artificial intelligence in the USA, they're going to need another 1 hour. I suggest do some research on the internet. And of course, then if you want to work with us in the future, then we will definitely do research for you and tell you what's a good program for you specifically. But if you can think of a college in the US, they probably have an AI program. Baninderji talk about PhD chemistry. Baninder, shortlist the programs that you want to apply, the departments. Reach out to the teams, to the admission team and the professors who are conducting research or already have an expertise in the area that you wish to do your thesis in, right? Send them your CV, tell them that you want to connect, get on a call with them, understand whether they're encouraging you to apply further or not. If there is an encouragement, then apply to that program. If not, get it out of your shortlist. Your final application list will be far shorter. For Canada and psychology, Toronto, Ryerson, McGill, Alberta has a very strong program, but it depends on what psychology and what stage you are at. You know, some of them might be over competitive for you. Some of them might be just like targets for you. I don't know your profile, so it's hard to give you a final list, but these are some of the programs you can start off with. Data science, IE, yes. So IE Business School in Spain has a very strong business analytics and data program, and University of Amsterdam as well has a really strong one. TU Delft is also something you can look at for data science. These are very, very good programs in Europe to consider if you're looking at the data science analytics field. Yes, so somebody asked me if they should look at acceptance rate while selecting for dream and target list. So here's the thing, right? When you're creating your list, there are two things to keep in mind. One is the acceptance rate, the admit rate, the average scores, average GRE, typical average GPA of the class, and all of that will give you an idea about how your profile fits into a dream target or safety for that college. But the other thing also to look at is the curriculum a good alignment to what I want to build in my profile, right? What am I looking, the skills that I'm looking for, is this exact curriculum giving that to me? Because if you can see the fit to your goals, then chances are the university can see your fit as well, right? So that's a good thing. Will we get good scholarship if we get a good GMAT score for MBA? GMAT scores are an important indicator for scholarships across master's programs, whether it's PhD, MBA, MS. How much, where, etc. Elena, please reach out to the MBA team or reach out to me and I'll connect you to the MBA team. They'll be better able to answer that for you. Okay, I think I'm going to now end this session because otherwise the questions will keep coming. I know there are a lot of unanswered questions and I'm really sorry, but we have to end the session right now. My next webinar next Saturday is on resume specifically. So anybody here who's really thinking of doing the applications on their own, or even if you're in first year college and you just want a good resume to start off with, join the session. You know, I'm going to be more personal about it. I'm going to definitely sit down and show you good samples and bad samples. And I'm actually putting together an interactive session as well, you know, hoping that, you know, we can actually talk to each other and we can share some ideas about, you know, the resume. And I'll take questions there as well. Then following that, I'm doing a session specifically for engineering, then one for finance, one for management, and one for management. I don't mean MBA, I mean masters in management. And then I'm doing one for social sciences. So your public policy, public health, psychology, industrial, HR, all of economics, all of that comes under the social sciences. So do log into the sessions that you definitely see an interest in. I would encourage each one of you to log into our Journey to College event, which is in July, which is where the past applicants who we worked with are going to come and share their journey with you. And, you know, you can ask them questions about, did they really need the GRE? You know, what kind of an IELTS score can they look at? Are they happy with their admit? How much are they paying for it? All those questions, right? And I'm also doing a special panel for women in STEM thereafter. You know, all the women, successful applicants this year with us who worked and are going into STEM focused programs. It's been a fantastic afternoon. I'm so excited with the quality of the questions that have come in. I'm so excited to see the engagement. of the audience. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, for taking out the time and attending our session today. You will definitely get a response from me if you send me an email. If you book a session, my team will speak with you, and we can definitely stay in touch thereafter. Follow us on all our social media. We put in a lot of relevant information there as well. Until I see each one of you again, bye-bye. Thank you for attending, and have an amazing, amazing weekend.